In the words of Edward Vernon Rickenbacker, the aviation pioneer, aviation is proof that given the will, we have the capacity to achieve the impossible. And how do we do it? Well, by working together in partnerships across the whole value chain. Other incredible feats include, of course, the development process of the COVID vaccine. It usually takes 10 to 15 years to develop a vaccine in the world, and the COVID vaccine was developed in just under a year, actually. And how did they do it? Well, it was thanks to the worldwide collaboration of thousands of scientists that it was made possible to accelerate the research and accelerate the clinical trials that allowed us to have this vaccine within the space of a year. And this, my friends, is where stars are born. This is a picture of the Carina Nebula, and it is located 7,600 light years away from here. It is the part of the first lot of pictures that the James Webb telescope took, so it's from 2022. And how was this made possible? Well, again, a radical collaboration effort of thousands of scientists across the whole world, 14 countries, maybe more, were involved in making it possible for us humans today to take pictures of where time began. Mind-blowing. And let me also stress, incidentally, that how did those vaccines get to the patients involved, those shots get into people's arms? Well, obviously, air cargo. How did the James Webb telescope get to the launch site? Obviously, air cargo. So, you take awareness of these types of incredible feats of humans, and surely you must feel, like I do, that increasing SAF production by a factor of 1,000 by 2050 is easy peasy. For sure, if we can produce a vaccine in the space of a year, if we can take pictures of the beginning of time, and all of this thanks to the strength of our will and our strong partnerships and our collaboration, for sure we can make this happen as well. Now, it would of course be greatly helped if we had a bit more economic growth. Yeah, that is always the easiest way to success, is to have more economic growth. Now, 3.2% GDP growth for the global economy is actually completely average. It's in line with the long-term average of the global economy, and it's remarkably stable from last year, this year, and we think also next year, about 3.2% growth. So it's sort of neither here nor there, neither hot nor cold, not bad. We're grateful that this is a long way away from the recession that so many people predicted last year, but it's still sort of a bit subpar for all the challenges that we face going forward. In this environment, passenger traffic in our industry has managed to grow by almost 10.5%. So that is way in excess of the global GDP growth rate, and I think that's amazing. We should be really proud of that feat. And that's obviously passenger numbers. RPKs, so revenue passenger kilometers, are up a little bit more by 11.6%, and this is because people are not only traveling, they're also now starting to increase the length of their journeys again as people recover from still recovering from the COVID pandemic. So we're outpacing GDP growth, that's great. Cargo is actually also outpacing GDP growth, but growing at half the speed of passenger traffic. So if that sounds disappointing, we have to remember that cargo comes from a much higher base. Yeah, and cargo was our lifesaver during the COVID period, so growing more slowly from a higher base sort of makes sense. And the passenger side is coming up from a lower base. In terms of our revenue split for the industry as a whole, it looks like this. So in red, you have the passenger revenue, and in blue, the cargo revenue. And you can see how we seem to be sort of mean reverting in terms of cargo's share in airlines' total revenue. We're still a smidge above the 2019 level, but clearly we have not been able to hold on to the exceptionalism that we had with cargo during the stellar cargo years of 21 and 22. So the revenue growth is coming from the passenger side, even if cargo is holding up a smidge above the 2019 level. And this all gives us the very evocative, nearly $1 trillion figure for our annual revenues as we predict them in 2024. And that's a growth in revenue of about 9.7%, which is not a bad number, but not as high as our growth in traffic. So still a smidge below the growth in traffic. And expenses are likely to be around 936 billion this year. And we have a growth in expenses of about 9.4% year on year. And this gives us an operating profit this year about 60 billion. So in terms of yields, they are still growing, but less rapidly than last year on the passenger side. And cargo yields are still falling, but they're falling by less than they did last year. So growth is still happening, but the pace of improvement is slowing into 24 from 23. And the fact that we've managed to control our expenditures at this level is really quite remarkable, given how the cost picture is pretty much alarming everywhere you look. Labor costs, all the costs that airlines face are pretty much rising still, and fuel is our greatest cost component. So of course it's extremely important to us how much we think that we will continue to have to pay for fuel. So we have an upward bias in fuel prices, first of all maybe from the geopolitical context with more wars in the world than we have had in a long time. That is definitely not good and tends to induce an upward bias in oil prices. And also we just had OPEC announce that they will still stick to the production cuts that they had adopted previously. So we now have a Brent price at about $81 a barrel, and maybe the floor, because of the geopolitics and OPEC's decisions, the floor under oil prices this year could be situated somewhere in this vicinity. Maybe. I'm sure we will hear more on that from our panel soon. Now, on the right-hand side, we are showing SAF costs, actually, because nobody really knows the price of SAF. It's a nascent market. We don't have any screens that we can look at for the SAF price. So the gray line is production costs of SAF in the US with the credits. The blue line is production costs of SAF in Europe, obviously no credits. And in orange, we have the supposed traded price of SAF. So SAF is about 2 to 5 times more expensive than jet, and clearly we not only need SAF to be produced rapidly in greater volumes to decarbonize, we also need this to allow these costs to fall so that we can consume the SAF at a more reasonable price. Anyway, in spite of all of those headwinds, we still think that it leaves us with a net profit this year of 30.5 billion and a net profit margin of 3.1%. So that is, obviously, a stellar performance given where we came from. And this performance varies across the regions. We talk about industry averages, so it's important that we highlight the variations across the regions and how the North American market and region is in the lead in terms of profits. And you can see the distribution of the other regions as follows. So this is the problem with averages, yeah? That they tend to hide, obviously, the great variability of these phenomena. And if we look at this number per passenger, we get to about $6 per passenger. 6.14 US dollars per passenger is the net profit in our industry as a whole. And again, a big variability. You can see how it ranges from, barely $1 per passenger in Africa to just over $15 in the Middle East per passenger. So again, a great, this obviously leaves lots of room for improvement, but nevertheless, I think that this shows us that given our will, we definitely, with these numbers, prove yet again that we are an industry that makes the impossible possible. Thank you.